why we believe the moon landing, and why balloons are the perfect analogy. Hey everyone, welcome back to the stuff you should think about. I'm G, and I'm so glad you're hanging out with me today. So, I was walking through the park the other day, and I saw this kid holding a giant foil covered balloon, one of those Star Wars ones that just won't seem to deflate. He let go of a string, and I watched it float up higher and higher until it was just a tiny silver speck against the blue sky. And it got me thinking. We look at that balloon and we implicitly understand the physics of it. We don't know it's going up because the helium is lighter than the air around it. We don't doubt the balloon. We don't think, oh, that's a government hologram designed to distract me from the true nature of the atmosphere. But then we look at the moon. The moon is right there at night, hanging in the sky like a giant glowing lantern. And yet, for some strange reason, humanity has developed this weird, itchy obsession with doubting that we ever actually went there. Today, I want to talk about the moon landing disbelief. I want to walk through why it feels so hard to believe, why we struggle with the scale of it, and why, if you look at the evidence and think about it like you think about that balloon, it's actually much stranger to deny it than it is to accept it. Grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable. Let's talk about history, physics, and why our brains are wired to be skeptics. First off, let's get something straight. Disbelief isn't a sign of stupidity. It's a sign of how we're built, how human beings are evolved to understand the world on a human scale. We understand how far a mile is because we can walk it. We understand how fast a car goes because we can feel the G-force in our chest. We understand a balloon because we can see the string. But a rocket, a Saturn V rocket, that's not a human scale event. It's a titanic, earth-shaking, physics-defying monolith that stands 363 feet tall. When you look at the Apollo 11 mission, you're looking at a trip. You're looking at an explosion carefully controlled to push three people into a void that is essentially trying to kill them at every possible nanosecond. When people say, I don't think we went to the moon, what they're really saying is, I struggle to believe that my species is capable of something that feels like magic. And honestly, I get it. It is magic. It's just that it's magic powered by math, liquid oxygen, and a very specific type of human desperation to win a space race. Before we dive into the conspiracy theories, let's ground ourselves in what actually happened. July 1969. The Apollo 11 mission. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins. Here's a fact that usually blows people's minds. The computing power in the Apollo guidance computer was roughly 0.043 megahertz. Your smartphone, it's millions of times more powerful. People look at that and say, How could they navigate the stars with the computing power of a digital watch? But here's the thing. You don't need an iPhone to calculate a trajectory. You just need geometry. NASA didn't have computers that could stream 4K video, but they had thousands of mathematicians, human computers who understood the orbital mechanics developed by Johannes Kepler back in the 1600s. We knew how to get to the moon long before we had the hardware to do it. We just had to build the hardware to match the math. One of the biggest arguments I hear from listeners is about the photos. Gee, look at the shadows. They aren't parallel. That means there were multiple studio lights. I look at those photos and I see science. You see, on Earth, shadows are often softened or distorted because our atmosphere scatters light. On the moon, there is no air. There's no atmospheric scattering. It's just direct light from the sun hitting a jagged, cratered surface. If you're standing on a hill on the moon, the shadow you cast is going to behave differently than the one on a flat, grass-covered lawn in Florida. And don't forget the waving flag. People say, that flag is waving. There's no wind on the moon. Again, think like a scientist. If you've ever hung a tapestry or a banner, you know it doesn't just fall perfectly flat the moment you let go of it. The astronauts were literally twisting the pole in the lunar soil to set it up. The flag had a horizontal rod to hold it out. Otherwise, it would just go limp. Because there's no air resistance. When they twisted the pole, the fabric kept moving, vibrating, for a lot longer than it would on Earth. It wasn't waving in the wind. It was just settling into a vacuum. Here's one point that, for me, shuts down the conspiracy debate entirely. The moon landing happened at the height of the Cold War. We were in a vicious, high-stakes competition with the Soviet Union. If the United States had faked the moon landing, if we had spent weeks building a set in the desert and broadcasting a lie to the world, the Soviet Union would have had the most powerful motive in human history to expose us. They had telescopes. They had tracking stations. They were monitoring our radio transmissions. If we hadn't actually gone, the Soviets would have been the first to call us out. They would have laughed us off the global stage, but they didn't. They congratulated us. They knew we went because they were tracking the signal coming from the moon. You can't fake the radio signal from the moon. Maybe you're wondering, gee, why does this even matter? Why do we need to care if people think it's fake? It matters because we doubt the greatest achievements of our own history. We limit our future. We start thinking that progress is a lie. We start thinking that we're incapable of doing hard things. The moon landing wasn't just about putting a guy in boots on a dusty rock. It was about taking a group of 400,000 engineers, scientists, and workers and pointing them at a single impossible goal. It's about the fact that the same species that spent thousands of years hitting each other with sticks finally figured out how to look at the night sky and say, I'm going to go stand over there. Think about that kid in the park again. When the balloon floats up, it's going against gravity. It's exerting force. It's moving into an environment that is very different from where it started. Apollo 11 was just a much larger, more expensive version of that balloon. It was a vessel designed to displace itself from the gravity of Earth and float into the vacuum of space. It followed the laws of physics, not the logic of a Hollywood soundstage. If we can accept that a piece of latex can float because of gas pressure, we should be able to accept that a titan of an engineering can reach the moon because of kinetic energy. Here's my closing thoughts for you today, and I want you to really sit with this. Why is it comforting to believe the moon landing was fake? I think it's because if it was fake, then the world is a simple place. It's a place where conspiracies are the main driver of history. It makes the world smaller. It makes the challenge less daunting. If it was fake, then we don't have to feel the pressure of standing on the shoulders of giants who actually pulled off the impossible. But when you accept that we did go, that we flew 238,000 miles, landed on a tin can on a crater, and walked around, suddenly the world feels much, much bigger. It feels like a place where things that seem impossible are actually just waiting for the right math, the right team, and the right amount of brave engineering. The moon landing isn't a mystery to be solved. It's a reminder of what we are. Next time you're outside at night, look up. Look at the bright, lonely rock. Don't look for shadows or wires or light rigs. Look at where we went. Look at the footprint that is still there, sitting in the dust, waiting for the next generation to get back there and add a few more. I'm G, and this has been Stuff You Should Think About. Thanks for listening. Keep looking up. Keep asking questions. And remember, the truth is usually a lot more impressive than the conspiracy. I'll see you next time.